Alright, we got one package. Oh geez. But I'm so far behind on ordering this month's stuff that this is all I literally ordered. And of course it decided to just slide down there. It's been that kind of week. Not bad, just annoying. Alright, well, starting from the top, we've got Golden Kamuy Season 1. We don't have to check behind the sticker. Before we do, let's look at the back. I see Region A. I see in English dub. Interesting imagery. I don't know what it is, but yeah. Fortunately, the sticker is on the outer plastic, so we can just take that off, toss it aside, and then this is the limited edition, so this comes separate, and then here we have whatever the limited edition comes with, which apparently appears to be some sort of glue that I can't get unstuck from the DVD itself. Okay. Jesus Christ, that's a huge chunk of glue. No wonder it couldn't come off. Oh well. We'll go with that and take a look at the card. They look like they are enjoying what they are eating. Then we have this on the back. This on the side. It's a very golden, shiny box. We have this booklet, which appears to be the bottom of it, which looks pretty standard as far as your booklet inserts go. Something a little different, but not super different. You know what? I have absolutely no idea what I'm looking at in terms of these characters. Like what sort of show it's supposed to be. We've got what appears to be 2 DVDs and 2 Blu-rays. And Jotaro for some reason. Well, not really, but okay. Blu-ray 1, Blu-ray 2, DVD 1, and DVD 2. Alright. Let's make sure this gets included. So next up we have Dragon Ball Super, Part 7. Now let's see. Is there stuff on the back worth mentioning? Prepare for Tournament of Tournaments. None of those look like extras. Oh, 2 DVDs. Anyways, this show's been selling in DVD parts and Blu-ray parts, so obviously these are DVD parts. It's nice to see 17 again. We haven't seen him in a while. I think maybe Boo Saga. And here's the Blu-ray version. Region A, dub of course. Everything else, this is basically, you know, a smaller version of the other one with the blue top. And once again, yeah, I thought that was TN, but I wasn't sure if I was remembering correctly. Some stuff. Whatever. Should be interesting to see if they're more than just cover art, or rather disc art. I'm pretty sure they are more than just, because I think Dragon Ball Super is a little more universe aware than maybe some parts of something. Space Battleship Tiramisu, which actually sounds like a food. Oh look, it's Menchie. And not to be confused with, the old Minchi. You know, obviously they've replaced Minchi. I do not see any sexy food underneath that. What the hell? Okay, I do see a little robot. That's a robot person, maybe robot girl. What the fucking hell is this? Includes 3 OVA episodes. I can't tell what that is. Naked guy? Naked robot guy? What the fuck am I looking at? I'm confused. Let's look down here. I see region A and B. I see an English dub. I see 13 episodes plus 3 OVAs on Blu-ray. Yeah, this is a Blu-ray only release. Okay. Interesting. Is there an dub? Yeah. Audio includes Japanese and English audios. What the fuck is this? Tiramisu. Does not sound familiar. And I do like that it looks kinda like an adversarial shonen ai maybe. Except I like the guys. I like the eyepiece. I don't know. Good character designs. Okay, the fact that this is on one Blu-ray suggests these are not full-length episodes. Okay. So then that raises the question of what do we have, which we can probably find if I look back here for something like a runtime. Special features. Well, in any case, if I were to take a guess, they're probably closer to half-length episodes. Because then they would easily all fit on one Blu-ray. Next up, we have Dances with the Dragons. You know, the anime sequel to Dances with the Wolves. Which is not actually a thing. It was Dances with Wolves, and that was actually... But, you know, joking aside... I am wondering what I'm looking at in the back there. It's really hard to tell because it almost looks like a head with a really long neck, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just that in this lighting, it's so dark that I just can't see. Okay, yeah, I see some shoulder there. But that guy doesn't look like it. Or does he? No. What the fuck even am I looking at? Top Shelf Magic, Low Paying Havoc. Oh, sounds fun. Region A, 12 episodes on Blu-ray. Audio, it's got an English dub. Promo videos, techless songs. Did I look at the promos for this one? Where's the promos for this one? Oh, extras. Basically, your basic extras. And your basic extras. Okay, let's take a peek at this thing that I can barely see on the front cover with the amount of lighting I have, and with this plastic reflecting what little moderate light there is, I guess. Take a look in the book, Reading Rainbow. Here we've got episodes 1 through 9. Here we've got episodes 10 through 12 plus extras. We have a persons. 2 persons. And another 2 persons. I think those are the same 2 persons from different angles. So I guess Funimation is starting to go with more Blu-ray only releases. That does seem to be the future. Bye bye disk space. Fortunately, you know, in maybe 5 years I'll be able to buy one of those 100 terabyte drives, and then I'll continue storing space. Alright, let's take a look for any sexy food underneath the cover here. Well, I guess if you like eating back. Is that back? Is that front? Is that arm? No. I see, that's the side of somebody's head. Face. Do you like eating face? Anyways, this is a Basilisk release, and as far as I can tell, this is a sequel to the Basilisk I remember watching a shit ton of time ago. Old Battle, New Blood. Burma Shave. Regions A+B, English dub. Where's the extras? Where's the extras? Episode 10 commentary, textless songs, and trailers. So, if you never watched the original Basilisk, first of all, there's an anime called Ninja Scroll. And I think Ninja Scroll kind of popularized a way of portraying ninjas that Basilisk was pretty much a really good series version of showing. You know, things where ninjas could somehow superhumanly modify their bodies to be more spider-like, or excrete impossible poisons, or impossible shapes. Things that are very magical and mystical and impossible, and yet kind of fun. And Basilisk was notable, I guess, because it was sort of along those lines, and it was a bit of a Romeo and Juliet-esque tragedy about warring clans and tragedy, I guess, for lack of better words. So, kind of curious how this maybe changes things up. Does this change the story? Does this tell a different one? Is this a continuation? I can't remember. Let's save that one for last. Let's save that one for last. This is just a hentai. Anyone you can do, I can do better. Except released on Blu-ray. And had a pretty raunchy back, didn't it? Alright, now let's finish with this. A Silent Voice, which is based on a critically acclaimed manga by Yoshitoki Oima. And I think I've seen this one's name a bit. I might have even imported a copy, thinking it might have subtitles, but it didn't. But now it doesn't matter because I have it on DVD and Blu-ray. And I'll add it to the list of things that are movies that I should watch, but for some reason I never get around to. I see Region A and Region 1, so region coding as expected. Touching and powerful movies I've seen all year. Ooh, special features. Original Japanese promo videos and trailers. Music video. Theme song music video. Let's see. This is released by Shout Factory, so I'm trying to think. I don't think they have a tendency to say when they have, or maybe they include it here. 130 minutes. Okay, so this has Japanese and English audio, so this has a dub. Dolby. Okay, that's all stuff. Let's take that off, make sure it looks the same, and then take this plastic off to finally finish this. Finish it. So here we have a DVD version of the movie. Here we have a Blu-ray version of the movie. I don't know much about what it's actually about. It looks touching story. It's definitely, you know, somewhat more reminiscent of high school age sort of stuff. So that pretty much means it's like 50% of anime, or at least 50% of stuff that gets here. But I digress. Here's this week's anime DVD collection update. What was I watching before this? I don't remember. I think I had gotten to a pausing point on that, or a stopping point. So, like I said, I was probably considering watching Darling in the Franxx, and I guess that's what I fired up next. And it's really hard to say for certain what I think of the series. The first episode is off to a good start. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best start per se, since it's hard to tell what to think about it. There's exciting things that happen, but at the same time, it's kind of hard looking at it to tell where's the series going to go from here, and it plays around a bit and goes somewhere with that. But I think after the first episode, it kind of gets to this point where it's trying to expand on the major themes, I think, without actually expanding on the events of the first episode per se. Because I think a lot of that stuff is actually supposed to happen in the second core, which, you know, comes after this. They started leading up to the place where it's like, okay, looks like they're getting prepared for some major reveals. But the exact nature of those, I'm not exactly sure.
And whether or not it's a good series overall is actually kind of hard to tell at this point. And I kind of understand that people really liked when it began and kind of tapered off, and I got the impression people liked the ending, but maybe I've seen indications that people didn't, and that might depend on person to person, but it's really hard for me to step back and objectively know. I think part of the problem is that the series is very closely tied to the idea of teenage sexuality, and whether or not that's a long run good thing or a short term trying to get you enticed and tied into the show, it's actually kind of hard to say. It kind of requires me to see where they plan to go with it, because they basically set up where it has to be guy-girl pairings piloting the Franxx for the most part. They don't exactly explain why, but it's definitely being set up in a way where there's relationships, there's this idea of them getting together. The positioning of the male and the female pilots is very not really questionable, but overtly I guess sexual isn't quite the right word, but implicative of that, I guess. And it's really quite interesting because the series also plays this notion where you have people with training dummies, where the training dummies kind of have, the training units where you're doing it by yourself kind of have this thing with the shape of a girl's propositioned, presenting backside in the front. And it's all, the way the characters talk about it almost kind of feels like making fun of somebody who's masturbating in a way. But these are all just kind of themes, and it's really hard to tell if they tie into bigger things. It's sort of like if you watch Gurren Lagann kind of emphasizes the idea of the spiral, but then they take it to pretty incredible places as the show goes on. You're quite surprised where they go with it, and at the end of the show, usually you're drawn in, enticed, and cheering, and all into just how awesome they're taking that symbology. And it doesn't seem like it's just for the piloting of mechas' sake that this is there, because the characters' relationships to each other in terms of how well they're able to pilot, work together, and stuff does seem to be all about exploring relationships. So it gets really hard to tell if the symbolism will pay off long run or if it's a short term, oh yeah, cute girl in front of them sort of thing. It doesn't really feel like it's definitely one way or the other. It could easily fall either way. And the comparison to Gurren Lagann is kind of apt, because it's my understanding that this was a Studio Trigger release, and the people that formed Studio Trigger were the people from Gainax who worked on Gurren Lagann, as I understood it. And Gurren Lagann, of course, is a Gainax owned, well, maybe it isn't, I don't know, was I seeing something suggesting otherwise? But for the most part, even though the companies are different, I think it's still the same people, and so they come up with these things that are thematically similar, like the idea of clothing with Kill la Kill, where they're trying to play with it, this interesting idea of what we wear. And of course, a lot of this stuff is also an excuse to have fan service, but the fan service tends to be kind of along the lines of the underlying theme that's going on, which is why they tend to be pretty acceptable. So my guess is they're intentionally trying to go somewhere with this, but I won't really be able to tell until I watch the second core. So from what I did watch, again, it starts off pretty good. It's not necessarily bad after that, but it is something that would be good or bad depending on whether or not there's a payoff. It feels like you're investing time and you really want to know. Next up, I watched the first core of Star Blazers 2202, and pretty much if you watch the first series, I think you'll like the second one just fine. It still feels like the very same universe. It's really good when they make something within the same time frame. They don't skip 5 years and have different people doing the animation and different people doing the voices and stuff like that. It feels like a continuation of the first season. Now, how it compares to the original Star Blazers, the one that aired in the 70s, I'm still not sure because I still haven't gone back and watched that, and I probably won't because I have a big backlog and I will barely watch anything that I say I will watch. But overall, pretty good. It feels like they kind of understood that some of the surprises and tricks that they had for the first season are not things that they need to revisit for this one per se. So I don't think that I think they're going for a very different theme in terms of just the general goal of stuff. So like, if the first season could be categorized as being at war with an enemy that thinks a lot like you, the second season is about going to war with an enemy that doesn't think like you. And it's interesting because they seem to be putting certain pieces in place to, you know, make sure that the bad guys, even though they're thinking differently, aren't to be considered, I don't know, just a morally black bad guy. It kind of reminds me a bit of Macross I'm talking about the original one because that's the only one I watched, but I think the others are kind of similar in terms of there does seem to be a similar theme going on about how some of their ways of thinking differently may be more cultural than just an inherently different thing. So that's leading to the possibility of some really interesting culture clash going on in the second core. Something which the first series kind of sort of did, but a different kind in terms of both sides needing to realize the other's like the other, and one side needing to be freed from their dictatorial regime in order to fully realize themselves as individuals. And one thing I like about the second season is it doesn't feel like it's really crapping on that as an idea. Instead, it's, you know, setting up its confrontation a different way, and it's not even just the whole, yeah, these enemies don't think like us. It's kind of a moral questioning point at this point where, yeah, I guess I don't want to say too much more just because I don't want to spoil the first season a whole lot. It's just that the idea that there's a second season shouldn't surprise people who watch the first one to a degree. It's just mostly a question of, from where they left off in the first season, they could have actually just ended the show there, and it would have been a nice story. Can they make it relevant going forward? And I feel like the answer is yes. So, second season off to a good start. And then finally, I watched the first disc of Gale Online Volume 1. So I'm only like halfway through this thing. Yeah, I did finish the first disc. And it's okay. Some of the problems it suffers from are that it's set in an already established universe and also set in an already established game. So to a certain degree, it doesn't have a flavor of really feeling like it's completely treading new ground. It doesn't feel completely out of it. It just kind of feels like it's slightly off to a okay start, but not a really great start per se. So if my reading of the name and you're unfamiliar with it didn't let you know, Gale Online is the name of a game that first appears in Sword Art Online Season 2. I think it was Season 2. Basically what is called Sword Art Online 2 on the DVD Blu-ray releases. And it wasn't about exploring Gale Online per se, but the exploration of it as a game happened there. And so this one, it's hard to say if this is necessarily a good take on it. It's the sort of thing where you could say, well, why don't you just make a completely different story about the same concept? And I think the creator did, and I think I've heard of one or two shows which don't even take place in the Sword Art Online universe that were done by them, but they're different scenarios, and I can't remember the name of that one, but it was another isekai show. And I'd like to say video game isekai, but one of the nice things about that anime is that one made it ambiguous as to the status of our characters. Well, anyways, all that aside, that's the first 3 episodes of this I watched, I think, and you know, I'm gonna give it a little more watch to see if it's trying to do something interesting. But as it is, I think so when it comes to Sword Art Online itself, it sort of feels like there's a love-hate relationship people have with it, and there's this thing where I think even some of the people who are kind of on the fence or leaning towards I don't like it may agree that the first core of the first season was maybe watchable, and others I've heard didn't even really like that. But I think I've kind of speculated along these lines before, but I think Sword Art Online kind of accidentally hit on something that unintentionally worked better than it maybe normally would have. And it continues coasting forward because of that. But it doesn't reproduce that, so that's kind of just a one-off weird thing, which means when it comes to exploring the Sword Art Online extended universe, I guess, it's more... I could see that one being more iffy for people trying to decide whether or not they even want to spend the time on it. Hopefully my talking about it allows people to say, oh, yeah, no, I'm good. Or other people to say, well, I'm kind of curious. So what can I say about this that I did like? I mean, the main character's story seems mostly good. They try to set up this thing where it's like, oh, yeah, girl power, maybe? And I'm like, well, hopefully you have more than that, because if that's all you have, then it's, well, that in and of itself is kind of a one-trick pony. And you want something that does more than that. You want something that tells a story that you're invested in. And so far, getting past that one tiny scene which suggested something like that, it hasn't really been leaning on that per se. In fact, I would say that Sword Art Online 2 almost kind of did-ish. But for the most part, I guess the creator knows you really shouldn't make this about just pointlessly celebrating somebody because they happen to be born with the right sex organs. In this case, it's more like, for Sword Art Online, it's about celebrating somebody who just happened to be born as the most capable guy in the universe, unfortunately. Ish. But, you know, you get outside of that, you get to this, and so far, yeah, it's been okay. Watching main character, which is, you know, the pink girl here, watching what she goes through is nice. I would think, unfortunately, they've kind of made it more interesting to see what she would be like in real life and some of her real life shenanigans, I thought. Because I thought that was actually stronger, whereas they've had little side comments happening about her character in game, and they haven't really been utilizing this really potent contradiction they have where the fact that she's in VR playing a small character, but in real life she's a really tall person, they could be playing with things with that dynamic a little bit more to kind of make it about how she runs into stumbling blocks because, you know, the shapes of the bodies are different. The legs are going to be slightly longer when you're taller, and so she wouldn't have quite as lanky strides. She's not like just a tall person shrunk down. She's, you know, shorter and, you know, just a little bit in that direction, but not proportionately so. So it feels like maybe there's some missed potential there, but it's possible they're planning to get to that later, because they were really going in a full circle, telling her story up to the point where the anime begins. And where it begins is okay. That gets really close to a lot of the stuff with, okay, yeah, this is the kind of stuff that the person who makes Sword Art Online does, and they are kinda smart-ish. They can kind of make you say, yeah, that's kind of neat. It's just a question of, are they as valuable for storytelling per se? So I think that's maybe some of the disconnect there, where the guy likes to look up and create little intelligent situations, I guess, but maybe not ask if they're going to lead somewhere where people are going to want to. And I'm wondering, yeah, if the first story arc maybe unintentionally broke some of that stuff up. I don't know. Could be accidents. It doesn't really matter. Take all of this with whatever information you need, because, you know, that's Gale Online. Any other stuff I did? I think I finished Half Genie Hero last time. I didn't fire anything else up since. Let's see. My Thursday friend didn't come over like normal. He had stuff to take care of, business that came up. And my Friday friend, we finished watching Overlord Season 2. And so the unfortunate thing about him is that some of the stuff I was asked to watch, in particular Naruto Shippuden DVD Set 2 and My Hero Academia 2 Heroes, normally I would watch those with him, with my Friday friend. But because we've had like 3 weeks in a row where we haven't been able to get together, suddenly we have a huge backlog of anime, because now we have Dragon Ball Super here, and I wouldn't be surprised if that actually takes a higher precedence over some of this other stuff. But he also intends to watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, so at this point I'm falling behind on that stuff, and I can't guarantee when I will watch these. Part of the problem is I'm not going to watch Naruto Shippuden at all until I'm with him, because if it's hard to watch episodes and it's easier to watch them when you're suffering with somebody else, and I've been suffering with him for over 600 episodes at this point. Okay, not suffering for all 600 episodes, but, you know, we've been there all the way to say, yeah, that Three-Tailed Beast arc was... But My Hero Academia 2 Heroes could be different, except for the problem, this aired in theaters near the end of when the third season was airing on TV. Now, I've been told that it can maybe be watched before the third season. Maybe. I'm trying to remember what exactly was said, but I have to be kind of careful, because maybe I can, or maybe there's stuff in there. I don't know. I have to figure out, because I don't think it's an official story. And as far as I know, there's an episode in the third season that references it, but... or kind of, yeah, references it. I don't know if that means that this is canon or not. But basically it means that I have to be careful watching this. I have to make sure I time it in such a way that I don't ruin any surprises in terms of how characters develop power-wise, personality-wise, relationship-wise. And that's always a risk when watching these shonen movies is... oh, well, here you go. You get to see the Byakugan of, you know, all the Bleach characters that have revealed it so far. Oh, you didn't know that 3 of them had revealed it yet? Well, you don't get to have the big surprise when it happens in the show. Not that the show does it in a way that leaves it surprising, but the point is, it's kind of hard to watch them when the priorities are so everywhere. Consider it an excuse. I apologize to the guy whose birthday it was, and they wanted me to review one of them. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to continue pushing that off. I don't know how long, because the truth of the matter is, again, My Hero Academia movie, I don't know the timing of when to watch that, so it's hard to say. Naruto Shippuden, we're curious about that, I'm sure. But Dragon Ball Super kind of left off at a bad stopping point, and was interesting enough that I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to see where that goes. And at the same time, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is so fucking awesome that you can't really blame him for wanting to watch that over anything else. And at the same time, I guess we're just missing Captain Marvel. I'll probably read up on the Stingers online in case I feel like that's all I need to do before I watch Avengers Endgame, but I don't remember. That happened in February. Not February, April. This is April. I don't know the timing of everything. I'm forgetting the timing of everything. Oh well. That's pretty much my update for this week. So, yeah. Hopefully I'll get to some of those, but I'm sorry. It sounds like I'm probably not going to, especially with the influx of things that we may consider high priority. So, sorry. Otherwise, y'all have a nice week.